Hi friends, today I'm going to read you a book called Muncha, Muncha, Muncha. For years, Mr. McGreely dreamed of planting a garden. He dreamed of getting his hands dirty, of growing yummy vegetables, and of gobbling them all up. But he never once tried it until this spring, said Mr. McGreely. This spring, by golly, I am going to plant a garden. So he hoed and he sowed and he watched his garden grow. Lettuce, carrots, and tomatoes. Yum, 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 said Mr. McGreely. I will soon fill my belly with crisp vegetables. Sounds good to me. But one night when the sun went down and the moon came up, 3 very hungry bunnies appeared. Tippy, 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 pat. Muncha, muncha, muncha. Look what they did. Uh-oh. The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his gnawed sprouts, he was so angry. He built a small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. There, he declared, nobody can get in my garden now. But friends, look who's peeking. Look who's peeking, those 3 bunnies. So the sun went down and the moon came up. Tippy, 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 pat. Spring hurdled, dash, dash, dash. Muncha, muncha, muncha. Uh-oh, Mr. McGreely. So the next morning, when Mr. McGreely saw his nibbled leaves and gnawed sprouts, he was really mad now. So he built a tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence and all around his vegetable garden. Humph, he said, those floppy ears will never get over it. Nobody can get into my garden now. And the sun went down and the moon came up. And tippy, 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 pat, dig, scrabble, scratch, scratch, scratch. Spring hurdled, dash, dash, dash. Muncha, muncha, muncha. The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his chewed stems, his nibbled leaves, and his gnawed sprouts, he was really, really mad. So he made a deep, wet trench outside the tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence and all around his garden. Ha, he said, those pufftails can't get under it. They can't get over it. Nobody can get into my garden now. Let's see what happened when the sun went down. When the sun went down and the moon came up and tippy, 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 pat, dive, paddle, splash, splash, splash. Dig, scrabble, scratch, scratch, scratch. Spring, hurdle, dash, dash, dash. Muncha, muncha, muncha. It looks like they still got in there. Uh-oh. So the next morning, when Mr. McGreely saw his chomped blossoms, his chewed stems, his nibbled leaves, and his gnawed sprouts, he was furious. So he hammered and blocked, sawed and stalked, drilled and filled and trapped and locked. And he built a huge, enormous thing before the deep, wet trench outside the tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence and all around the vegetable garden. I've outsmarted them now, said Mr. McGreely. They can't get through it, they can't get under it, and they can't get over it. Nobody's gonna get in my garden now. What do you think? So the sun went down and the moon came up and tippy, 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 stop! The 3 hungry bunnies looked and they smelled and they touched this huge, enormous thing before them. What did they see? Tippy, tippy, pat. The bunnies hopped away. It worked. They didn't get into the garden. So the next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his untouched vegetables, he was so happy. said, and he did a jiggly wiggly dance. Then he climbed over it, jumped across it, squeezed between, and crawled under until he reached his vegetable garden. Ah, sighed Mr. McGreely, at last, smacking his lips. He picked and he pulled up lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes, and with his basket overflowing with all of his vegetables, he reached inside for something yummy. And guess what he did? Muncha, muncha, muncha. The end. I hope you enjoyed that book, friends. Have a great day.